According to the FBI, federal law allows citizens to reproduce, distribute, or exhibit portions of copyrighted motion pictures, videotapes, or video discs under certain circumstances without authorization of the copyright holder. This infringement of copyright is called fair use and is allowed for purposes of criticism, news, reporting, teaching, and parody. And we will be utilizing that during this sociological episode. Hello, everybody. Oh, also, the opinions expressed are not necessarily those of guests, the host, the owner, sponsors, current or future, or advertisers, current or future. And they are the sole responsibility of those expressing them. Let's put it that way. So, okay, because I've always had this in the description, and somebody said you got to put it in the actual video itself. So there you go. So hello, everybody. A little different beginning, but I'm here, and thank you all for watching. As always, this is Late Night America. And we got something coming up that a lot of people don't even know exists, and we're going to get to that in just a minute. So let's jump into what's going on. Again, thank you all for watching. It is primary day in a few states: New York, Florida, and I think Oklahoma. But the Florida governor race, as far as primaries has been determined. Charlie Crist is going to be taking on Ron DeSantis in Florida this fall in the elections. Now, Charlie Crist was a Republican and a Republican governor of Florida. He left the Republican Party and became a Democrat. So, did Charlie Crist suddenly decide everything that he had railed against, everything that he had lambasted that was a Democratic idea, were suddenly good? Or was he lying all that time? He was saying all these nasty things about the party he now represents? Or is he a really opportunistic person that just happens to be agreeable to whoever provides the money for both political parties? It's just something to think about. So, Crist transitioned from a Republican to a Democrat, and DeSantis is transitioning from a Republican to quasi-fascist. So that's what's happening. That's your brief update in the primaries, and I just want to stop on a page here real quick for just a second, and point out Wyckoff America. Thanks to all my supporters that put all the time and support for me to be able to get this Kimball. Really means the world to me. So his supporters bought him one of those organs that basically plays itself, one of those Kimball organs, and they must have. Oh, wait a minute! I didn't look at the picture. Oh, it's not a Kimball. It's a gimbal. It's one of these. It's a gimbal. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Okay, that changes things, because I saw one of his episodes where he was going to get on a train to go into Washington D.C. and he didn't know what the Smithsonian was, and I thought he was doing a bit. All right, no, poking fun at Byron there, and doing so in good and all in good fun, because we got a really serious episode. So no more fun allowed in this particular edition. We got something great coming up. I'm serious. Hang in here. And we're buzzing. What we're doing, we're buzzing through some things real quick, as we always do. And we've got a little extended thing, about a half an hour coming up that is, I think everybody needs to see, because a lot of people don't know about, and those that do know about might not remember. Before we get to that, on Friday, August 12th, the People's Republic of China launched the most powerful magnet ever constructed on Earth, with the intention of conducting scientific research in a laboratory. Of course they did. We know about Russia's magnetic experiments. We know, Sheldon Cooper and Leonard Hofstadter are here in the United States working on our magnetic experiments. So, while the poles may be migrating and it may be concerning, let's all build some giant magnets. And again, I said might and may, as far as what's going on with the Earth's poles. Anyway, that's a totally different episode, and we will have that coming up. Earlier today, Adam Fox and Barry Croft were convicted in the kidnapping plot of Governor Whitmer. They'll now become political prisoners by definition. And just want to give you a real quick look. He looks like one of the live streamers, I think, on 1776, maybe, or maybe a lot of them. No, again, I'm sorry. I said we weren't going to make any fun, but this is not fun. This guy was planning on blowing up a bridge as a diversion, and planning on, hold up, I don't even have him up here anymore. Planning on blowing up a bridge as a diversion, and then kidnapping the governor of Michigan. And while we're on this, some of you watching may be in the center. Some of you may be conservative. Some of you may be right, but not ultra right, not right to the point of concerning, possibly. And yet you might find yourself concerned. So one of the problems about everybody wanting to go to war is that it may be tough to figure out who's on whose side. So let's avoid it at all costs, shall we? And that's kind of leading us towards where we're heading there. We're heading towards basically a peace movement that you may not have been aware of. And I'm excited about it, as you can tell. But for some reason, there we go. My software button wasn't working. I'm going to share something from, I mentioned 1776 a couple of times here. And I'm going to share something just real quick. It's not really about 1776. It's about dealing with police officers, about what police officers are dealing with out there, and about where all of this might lead. This is going to take about a minute.
Afternoon.
Howdy.
All right. Do you know anybody by the name of Debbie that would have called in to allege that y'all are harassing the group across the street?
Debbie?
I watch every time we get a call. I pull up the stream to try to.
Oh my, hold on, let him talk. Go ahead, talk.
I've looked at pretty much everybody's channel at least once.
Let him talk.
Yeah, we've at least a dozen times now.
Yeah.
So,
Debbie. Let him speak.
No, you're fine. Record, whatever. It doesn't bother me. I understand how it works. So we get a call for harassment. Somebody named Debbie. I've not been able to get in touch with this person. I don't know if this person is on site. I talked to someone named Debbie over there. It's not the same person. So at this point, I don't have a complaint.
We have no idea.
They called 911?
I don't know that they called 911. Even if they did call 911, if I don't have their information to
It
be able to,
doesn't
I
matter.
can't do anything about it. Yeah, because
Okay.
it is a charge. If she's calling in saying that you're harassing Debbie, you're live right now, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Who is
So
Debbie?
whoever this Debbie person is, if I find out your information and I'm able to actually prove that you're making fraudulent 911 calls, there will be warrants for your arrest. Whether you're in West Virginia or not, there will be warrants submitted for your arrest for
False.
abuse of emergency services.
Yeah, they actually have things to do, not just show up here for no reason.
In regards to all that, obviously, it doesn't appear to me that you're.
We were only earlier. We were down there doing our thing.
Yes,
I was
all
waiting.
the protected activities that we've discussed,
Yep.
the boundaries that we've discussed, all of those things. I'm aware. I'm not.
I know you are.
About that.
You've been great to me.
My next inquiry is: do you have permission from
Yes.
the property owner to be here?
Yes, sir.
Is the property owner here to verify that?
I don't know.
Can we?
You have it on stream, like not today, but
we have it on stream from the property.
Yeah, he's actually allowed.
Okay. So, stopping it there. Cops have enough things to do. Word's probably going to get out that I teased Wyckoff a little bit, and there may be some 1776 people watching this. I was kind of hoping you might hang in here and keep hanging in here because you're going to learn some things, and it's always good to look a different direction. Don't be calling the cops constantly. You're going to get yourself in trouble. Now, I've been a public figure. My name's out there. I've been vetted by government in both parties, and all of you know that watch this. But average people that come on here on YouTube and post under their real name and then call in under that name and report 911 calls. Stop all this. Stop all this. Stop all of this. You got a bunch of misdirected hate, and you got a bunch of really false negative ideas in your heads. And people on the left have some false negative ideas in their heads about you. And we need to stop all this because if we don't, we're going to be picking up sides. And as you're going to see from what I'm about to play, choosing sides isn't going to win anything for anybody. Anything for anybody, in my opinion. All right. So this two other things that happened today that we really need to just touch on in just a couple of seconds. Rashard Brooks, the two police officers that were responsible for the death of Rashard Brooks, they were exonerated today in Georgia, and I hit the second. First, there we go. Charges were dropped in the shooting of Rashard Brooks by both officers. Neither officer was charged. Now, how it had been previous to this is that this now becomes, this is the wiki story. And I saved this because it is now going to be edited because of today's ruling. Here is the description, basically, of what they say happens. He fell asleep in a Wendy's drive-through. He was about to be handcuffed and grabbed a taser, attempted to run away, shot a taser at the officer's head. Right here, shot by Rolf, taser at the head. He was shot 2 times, and then a third shot struck an occupied car. Footage of the incident recorded from the officer's body cams, witness phone, and restaurant systems was widely broadcast. Yeah, we did that. I mean, not us. We were part of that. Police Chief Erica Shields resigned 1 day later Rolfe was fired. Bronson was placed on administrative duty. And on May 5th of 2021, Civil Service Board reinstated Rolfe with back pay after finding the city of Atlanta did not afford him his right to due process. So that's kind of the official version of how this is all going to play out. Does this matter? It matters in the big picture of what is going to be taught in schools in the way of history. Okay, and it's a subject for another episode, which we will get to. Now, Breonna Taylor, Louisville, Kentucky. Kelly Goodlett, one of the police officers, pled guilty to conspiracy and that there was a cover-up. He had lied to the Breonna Taylor, the judge. There never should have been a search warrant. For those that saw the protests and wondered why the protests kept going, not only was there an injustice from what happened, but almost immediately the people could put the evidence together and knew there was a cover-up going on, that the things weren't matching up, that things weren't right. And here 2 years later, we find that all to be true. Now, yesterday's episode, we did a brief episode. We touched on what's going on with Grandmaster Jay, and he was not sentenced yesterday. That continues. He was arrested December 3rd, 2020. Okay. I want you to keep that in your head ahead of what we're about to get to, because it is finally time for this. I've been waiting for it. I rushed through it. 11:17 p.m. So I did it. I wanted to get everything out in under 20 minutes and have this half hour and make this right around an hour show. So far so good in running production and running my yap at the same time. A lot of people don't know there was a group called the White Panthers, and the White Panther Party, and John Sinclair was the CEO, if you will, of the Black Panther, or of the White Panther Party. And again, a lot of people don't know it even existed, yet alone the impact on both the impact of the party on the times and the impact of the party on the man. And this is a story that very few people have ever seen. I wanted to get through everything so I could play this with limited interruption without jumping from screen to screen. I apologize to those of you in chat. Thank you all for watching, and thank everybody for watching. But those of you in chat, I apologize. I haven't gotten over there to say anything to anybody. I wanted to get this. I wanted to stay as focused as possible with who I am, and try to get this on. And we're going to do that right now. I might stop for just a couple of moments to comment, because that's what I do. Let me see if I can. Okay, we're good. And here we go.
White Panther program is cultural revolution by any means necessary. We've drawn up a 10-point program. First point is full endorsement and support for the Black Panther Party's 10-point program. Point two is total assault on the culture by any means necessary, including rock and roll, dope, and fucking in the streets.
We did not make the laws in this country. We are neither morally nor legally confined to those laws. Those laws that keep them up keep us down. You got to begin to understand that.
John Sinclair was put away for 10 years for possessing 2 marijuana joints. He spent 2 years of it in prison, virtually in isolation, in solitary.
John Sinclair is best known as the 60s marijuana activist who was sentenced to 10 years in prison for giving 2 joints to an undercover policewoman. He was eventually freed when John Lennon and Yoko Ono spoke out on his behalf. What is less understood is his role as the founder and chairman of the radical anti-war group, the White Panther Party, an offshoot of the Black Panthers. The Black Panther Party was a militant political organization formed after the murders of Martin Luther King, Malcolm X, and Robert Kennedy.
This nation is in a state of turmoil perhaps unparalleled in our history. Poverty amidst wealth, widespread racism, and bewilderment over a strange war are the seeds of the revolution.
This was in 1960. 40 years later, everything still applies, or at least an awful lot of it. Too much of it. Something to think about.
The Black Panther Party must develop still a power base.
Whenever the people disagree with the political decision that's been made upon their heads, that whenever the people disagree with those political decisions, the racist power structure sends their guns and swords to see that the people accept those political decisions. But we are here as revolutionaries to let them know that we refuse to accept those political decisions that maintain the oppression of our black people and other people in the world.
These racist Gestapo pigs have to stop brutalizing our community, or we're going to take up guns, we're going to drive them out.
Those who make peaceful revolution impossible will make violent revolution inevitable.
During the Cold War,
Okay, I might get some copyright hits, so you watching this live, you might be the only ones hear the music. I might have to go back and take it out. But again, you're hearing the words from people 40 to 45 years ago. I grew up in that time. Some of you may not have even been born. This is something I think a lot of young people should see. I know they won't, because they see me and they think, boomer automatically, because I'm in the boomer age group, but actually I'm a bloomer. I'm when it's zoomer, doomer, bloomer, boomer, I'm actually a bloomer. I have hope. I believe, and my hopes with the young people. I'm hoping the young people, we started it. We were doing it, and then the 80s came along and we all stopped doing it because we thought it wasn't necessary anymore, and it was.
Or the U.S. government launched a secret program called COINTELPRO to disrupt and ultimately destroy the Black Panthers and the anti-war movement. As part of this program, John Sinclair was set up and imprisoned on marijuana charges. When the government could no longer justify denying him a bond over 2 joints, they falsely charged him with a federal conspiracy to blow up a CIA station in order to make him disappear. In this case, we find the secret origins of so much that troubles us today, like classifying dissidents as terrorists, or the use of warrantless wiretaps and indefinite detention. The things that were revealed during John Sinclair's case are what the U.S. government would prefer history forget.
A 10-year sentence over 2 joints in a time when people weren't getting sentenced at all for a joint. Buying, selling quantities, yeah, you do some time.
was charged with being a member of a conspiracy to blow up the CIA recruiting office off the University of Michigan campus in Ann Arbor with 2 other guys who won't to this day admit whether they did it or not, but I wasn't really part of this. I was a case of mistaken identity. Because there was a guy who was at a meeting who was the brother of one of the other defendants, but he looked like me and we both had long brown hair and beards. And so they used that to place me in the conspiracy. Well, basically the ploy to put me in this was to keep me from ever getting a bond, because now I was a violent person who blew up shit. Well, before that I'd just been an advocate of blowing up shit. So we advanced under the free speech laws, you know.
We do not advocate blowing up shit.
But these guys actually blew this shit up. It was it was in what we called in those days an active armed propaganda. The CIA was forbidden by law from being active within the continental United States.
And if you do recommend blowing up shit, do not broadcast it on the internet.
Statutory.
Public service announcement complete.
United States. They weren't supposed to operate inside the country at all. Well, we found that, of course, on college campuses they had active recruiting efforts in offices, and they tried to get the best and the brightest of the young people to join the CIA, really combat communism and advance the causes of liberty and freedom, which the CIA was charged with protecting and advancing. So we thought this was really quite a severe contradiction that they were there on the campus where they weren't even supposed to be doing this. And in those days, even till the end of the 60s, the CIA was a very clandestine operation, even after they killed the president and Martin Luther King and all these other people, and Bobby Kennedy. They were still had a lot of cover. And so one of our goals as the White Panther Party was to uncover the CIA and their presence in our midst and their influence on things and what they meant really in terms of world domination by the United States. Consequently, these guys, somebody, blew up, put a couple of sticks of dynamite in front of the door of this office. When they went off, police and the news reporters would have to find out what was behind that door. And this really caused quite a great furor, for which we were very happy.
Okay, so you see how it was framed at the time was they blew up a CIA office. And I'm not condoning that or let me get my mute off there. Okay. What was framed at the time was they blew up a CIA office. And I'm not condoning that. I'm not recommending that. I'm just pointing out that what actually happened was they blew the doors open on the CIA office so that people would have to look inside and see indeed the CIA is operating on American soil, which is against constitutional law. Something we're talking about quite a bit here lately.
And then we took the Abbott Hoffman influenced defense maneuver of charging the CIA with the crimes. We called our trial the CIA conspiracy trial. The CIA is a conspiracy against the people of America. We got Bill Kunstler and Leonard Weinglass to represent us right after the Chicago 7 trial. And we filed a flurry of motions in the court, federal court, before Judge Damon Keith. We drew the judge who was like the dream judge for us, a black, left-wing activist judge, now a federal judge, appointed by John F. Kennedy. And so we've advanced these motions before him. One was for, is there any evidence obtained or have any of the defendants been wiretapped? And another was, they just passed the 18-year-old vote. And of course, part of the White Panther Party concept was that youth was a class, another idiotic mental construct I came up with. Of course they aren't a class, they're just youth, they're passing through. But we thought we were on acid, you know. We kind of foreshadowed that horrible reactionary philosophy they developed in the 80s about history is over, you know. We've blasted through history, you know. It's always going to be like this now. Well, not the case. Said
exactly what I was talking about. We blasted through history. We got to the 80s and we stopped.
They're passing through, but we thought we were on acid, you know. We kind of foreshadowed that horrible reactionary philosophy they developed in the 80s about history is over, you know. We've blasted through history, you know. It's always going to be like this now. Well, not the case. Sad to say. Then when we brought Allen Ginsberg and Julian Bond to testify that youth was indeed different. And we won that one. So.
In the state of Mississippi, many years ago, a boy of 14 years got a taste of Southern law. He saw his friend a-hanging, his color was his crime, and the blood upon his jacket put a brand upon his mind.
But in the end, we won a ruling on our motion about the wiretaps. And the prosecution came forward, that is to say the Nixon Justice Department came forward and said, yes, we have information on one of the defendants that was obtained by wiretap. It doesn't have anything to do with the case, and we can't tell you who the wiretap was on because it's a matter of national security. So what do you mean? They say, well, you know, when Bill Rehnquist was in the Justice Department, he helped us draft this policy called the National Security Wiretap, for which you wouldn't need a warrant. If the president says this is a matter of national security, he could tap you without a warrant. Nixon, man, what a character. The committee to re-elect the president, creep. That was about as good as it got in the Nixon era. With John M. Mitchell, head creep, you know. Boy, were they a rough bunch, man. You think you're up against some guys now, these guys, well, they're rougher now because they know how to do it. But these guys were inventing it, you know what I'm saying? They were like, Nixon. That goddamn Nixon, as we always called him. So Judge Keith, being the sort of individual that he was, ruled that the government had to disclose this wiretap, and in fact ruled that there was no such thing permitted under the U.S. Constitution as a warrantless wiretap. That's why you had the Fourth Amendment. And the government ended up appealing this all the way to the Supreme Court. The government appealed it. Anyway, we won 8-0 in the Supreme Court. And they say, and I hesitate even to report this because it seems like such a case of
we see right here a key example why packing the Supreme Court by the far right was such a big goal.
Self-aggrandizement. But they say our case was decided on a Friday afternoon, but they didn't release it to the press until Monday morning. And they say that during this weekend, Justice Rehnquist may well have called his comrades in the Justice Department and warned them that this ruling was going to be issued Monday morning, and that if they had any national security wiretaps in place, now would be the time to get them out, so that on Monday they could say that they had none. And that Saturday night was when they were in the Watergate Hotel removing the wiretaps from the Democratic National Committee office.
Okay, I'm just going to point a couple of things out here, just real fast. The guy we're watching here, John Sinclair, he was one of, if not the biggest leader of the left as far as potential danger to the government in that community at that time. Okay, what did they do right before they tried to steal an election? They got rid of him. All the way down to the same day he has a hearing, they're pulling the bugs out of the Watergate. Go back. Grandmaster Jay. What happened with him? He was looking through a scope, perceived to be pointing a rifle at law enforcement. In September, the first week of September, this was COVID. The Kentucky Derby had been delayed till the first week of September. It was the first week of September in Louisville, Kentucky. Now, if he was that dangerous, wasn't it irresponsible to leave him on the streets and finally decide to arrest him on December the 3rd? What was being planned on December the 3rd? That's right, the January 6th stealing of an election. It's just something to think about.
Second year and a half in Jackson prison in the, what they called the Triple O ward. No, you were locked up 23 hours a day.
Quick reminder, he's here for having 2 joints. He's here for 10 years.
No interaction with the main population. I never had main population at Jackson, the world's largest walled prison.
They kept you in SAG the whole time?
Yeah, every minute.
Yeah.
And then when we started the federal litigation, this was the worst part of the whole sentence. They would, and you would understand this as an ex-convict, they would send me back to the Wayne County Jail so I could meet with my lawyers and be there for the hearings in the federal court. And so I'd have to pack up my prison possessions and be taken in chains back to the Detroit County Jail, Wayne County Jail, like hell itself. And then I would spend 2 months at a time in there. Yeah, Jesus, I hate to even think about that. It's just such a depressing thing.
We're waiting here for you to get out.
Oh, yeah, well, I'm waiting to come out, you know. They passed that bill yesterday, and I think that it's going to happen, you know? It's going to happen. It's got to. People are just too deep into it. I'm too excited. I'm shaking. I don't know what to say. I just want to come home.
Oh, that was rough, man. Because, you know, the county jail is purposely run as a brutal institution as part of the pressure on the convict to cop to a felony charge, and then they can be free to go to the state penitentiary where they can have half of a life, you know. No life in the county jail. Anyway, when I think of that period, that's the overwhelming part to me, was going back to that motherfucker, man. Anyway, it's coming to the end of 1971. All the time I've been incarcerated, I've been actively involved with my group of people, which were the White Panther Party. And then in 1971, we transmogrified ourselves into the Rainbow People's Party. We thought...
The Rainbow People's Party, much more remembered for the roots that it laid than the White Panther Party. But this is the guy that started it all.
That we had pretty much done everything we could to alienate ourselves from our potential mass base by taking up this violent imagery of the Panthers. And we thought, this isn't really advancing our cause too well, and we had 3 of our main guys in prison. One of them had been on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list.
Advancing your causes through threats of violence. It doesn't work. We're showing here that somebody that advocated it and put it into action says it doesn't work. It wasn't moving our cause.
So we became the Rainbow People's Party. We advanced the idea of rainbow, of everyone getting along together. Real hippie thing. Because the hippie movement had become a mass movement by then. College students were hippies. When I went to prison in '69, college students were squares. They were frat boys and football players and drinkers and squares, short hairs, you know. And when I came out 2.5 years later, they were all hippies. It was just kind of mind-boggling. But my people have been trying to tell me this. You know, of course, I'm in a prison with a bunch of criminals. Not a hippie in sight, you know. Because they weren't sending hippies to prison then, yet. Pretty much. You pretty much had to have committed a crime. That's why I stood out for my sentence, because it was obvious that they nailed me on some technicality for a bigger crime with which they couldn't charge me. Sedition or treason or whatever, you know. I'm very proud of this because I was very intimately involved, not only with my own defense, but also as the chairman of our party. And if you look in my archives at the University of Michigan Bentley Historical Library, you'll find reams of letters. I wrote 7 single-space typewritten pages home every night for 2.5 years.
Everybody's gotta get it down together, take it back as a normal way. Don't think about tomorrow, just think about today.
You know, the thing I hate about this whole thing is it comes down in history that I was this terrible victim. But I wasn't really a victim. I just looked at this as part of my job. If you're going to be a revolutionary, you were going to have to go to prison. Lenin went to prison. Ho Chi Minh was in prison. All the great people went to prison. Charlie Parker went to prison. Gene Ammons did 7 years for heroin. You know, I mean, Dexter Gordon was in. Yeah, Lenny Bruce did time. I mean, it was just part of your job. And I had a beautiful support system, and my wife, Lenny, and my brother, David, were key members of the organization. So I was buoyed and held up by these people that I worked with, you know, who worked ceaselessly to get me out, ceaselessly. And part of it being rock and rollers. Of course, the MC5 had defected just before I went to prison, and they decided they didn't want to do this anymore. certainly their prerogative.
Take out the dance, motherfucker!
So every week, virtually, for 2.5 years, there was some kind of rock and roll benefit in my behalf, whether it drew 100 people or 1,000 people. And all the little money that came, they would give it to us and we'd give it to the lawyers, or use it for survival of the group.
Oh, dear John Sinclair, we celebrate your liberty tonight.
We organized the biggest event we had ever done. And a friend of ours was now working for the University of Michigan as the head of their office of major events, trying to teach them how to put on rock and roll shows and make money with them. Whereas when I was out there, we used to have to sue the University of Michigan every time we wanted to put the MC5 in one of their facilities. Well, now they realized that it was going to be big business, so they hired Peter M. Andrews to show them how to do it. Well, because of this, he had access to the university facilities. And through some miracle, we formed a student organization, and we rented the basketball arena, 14,400 seat Chrysler Arena, to put on a show to free John Sinclair on December 10th, 1971. In the course of organizing, trying to attract people that would draw a huge crowd, because we had to get a huge crowd to show that, it was a political thing. You had to show that you were winning in order to win.
Optics matter.
And in the course of it, we had a miracle happen. Our friend Jerry Rubin had become close with John Lennon and Yoko Ono. And he suggested to them that he was going to Ann Arbor to play. He told them about my case, and he said he was coming to Ann Arbor to play on my behalf, and maybe they'd like to come too. And they said maybe we would, and they did.
We came here not only to help John and to spotlight what's going on, but also to show and to say to...
Okay, so if you haven't seen enough history yet, you're about to see a live performance from John Lennon.
all of you that apathy isn't it, and that we can do something. This song I wrote for John Sinclair. 1, 2, 3, 4. It ain't fair, John Sinclair, in the step of breathing air. Won't you care for John Sinclair, in the step of breathing air? Let him be, set him free, let him be like you and me. I gave him 10 for 2, what else can Judge Columba do? We got to set him. If he was a soldier man, shooting gooks in Vietnam, if he was the CIA, selling dope and making hay, he'd be free, they'd let him be, breathing air like you and me. They gave him 10 for 2, what else can Judge Columba do? Was he jailed for what he done, or representing everyone? Free John now, if he can, from the clutches of the man. Let him be, lift the lid, bring him to his wife and kids. Alright, they gave him 10 for 2, what else can the bastard do? We got to to set him free, free.
And all of a sudden, everybody was on my side. It was the most beautiful and rapid, swift transformation. And after that, the things did, he came, he wrote a song for me. He came and played at the headline this big show. And 3 days later, they let me out on appeal bond, which was a very mythological situation. Yeah. I mean, apart from the personal effect on me, the happiest moment of my life, by far. And I've had a lot of happiness. Don't get me wrong. But also, we thought this was a brilliant victory on our part, and that our rhetoric had been justified and endorsed by the results. We said you could take rock and roll and use it to change the world and do good things, and all of a sudden, John Lennon gets me out of prison. So we worked off of that for the next couple of years, trying to organize hippies into a political force. So I'm like trying to herd cats, I gave it everything I had, and I concluded in the end that it was impossible. And by that time, in '75 or so, when I kind of gave up on this, the war was over. Nixon had been thrown out of office. The first oil crisis had occurred, and they raised all the prices on it. They doubled the cost of life in America overnight. And this incidentally started this whole thing that they've got 2 wars going on now for, the oil thing. So by the end of '75, the hippies, it was over for hippiness. You had to get a job. And of course, you get a job, you had to cut your hair, and that's when they had the drug tests, and they had the whole thing. So the hippie movement kind of ran afoul on the grounds of economic determinism, It's a beautiful period, though. I pray that it comes back before I croak. I pray for the young people every year that they take some acid and discover that you can change this shit. That you don't have to just eat it,
Change it. You
Not
don't
much
have to take
evidence so
acid.
far, though.
That's up to you.
So I just quit at that time. And then in general, and this was the end of a process that had taken a couple of years. And then I just realized that these people didn't want to have the kind of world that I had fought so valiantly and so long and made so many sacrifices in my personal life.
Okay, I'm going to pause it right here. We're getting close to the end. We're going to play the end, but I just want to point out what he just said. And I want us to all think about this, no matter if you're right, left, center, no matter where you're at. The idea that we want for life is not always going to be the idea that the next person wants, let alone every person. So wouldn't it be a lot better if we all just minded our own businesses and just let everybody live their lives as long as they weren't hurting anybody else, and just Rodney King, why can't we all just get along? Because, I can totally relate with him. I'm at the point where, I've stood up for a lot of things, and it's cost me. And do I regret? No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I've come to an understanding that there's a lot more power in we than there is them and us. And let's get back to this.
Because I thought that it would be a beautiful thing if we could all have this world. And I realized that wasn't the world they wanted. They wanted to have a job. They wanted to have a car. They wanted to live in the suburbs and bring their kids up and then go to all-white schools, and the whole thing. And I said, well, they can do that, but I'm not going to. So I just reconnected with the kind of beatnik poetry life I had, beatnik poetry and jazz life I had before I got involved in the struggle, so to speak, the political struggle. It was always a struggle. I regard myself as an example of what Ho Chi Minh said when he commented that men who come out of prison can build up the country. If I had to do it again, fight the law, not snitch on anybody, not plead guilty, I'd do it again. I mean, I think I would. I don't know. I'm old now. I gave up a lot more then than I would now. I had a child and a child on the way, so now my kids are 40 and 43. So I could do it now. I could go do some time. Because I read and I make radio shows. If I had a computer, I could do time easy. I do time. I live like in a cell wherever I am. I have a little room where I'm lucky I have my own room. And it's like my cell. And I got my old books and my records and I got everything on my hard drive. I don't require much. So I'm still having a great time.
Hello?
John, okay, here's John. You're on tape now.
Yeah. Hello?
Hello?
Hello? Hello, John?
Yeah.
Great. So there you are, right?
Right.
Here we are.
Really?
Great.
Yes.
So what happened?
I don't know, man. They just told me to go.
It's beautiful. Great.
That thing, I did it, man.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, the Supreme Court of the state of Michigan, man, they granted a bond on their own motion.
Beautiful.
They made it up themselves.
Great. Very clever of them.
Yeah, that's right.
It's great, isn't it?
How's Yoko?
Oh, she's fine. They used her.
Oh, good, very good.
Hello, John.
Hey.
Hi, how are you?
Good.
Well, look, we're so glad, it really gave us hope and everything.
Hello.
I mean, it became like history, right?
Really? I heard you on the radio.
Well, because it gave us all this incentive, you see. The people in New York and all that were very down mood.
Yeah.
They came here.
Yeah.
And, we felt like the flower generation is over and nothing's going to happen, right?
Right.
But we can start all over again, right?
It's beautiful. It was a victory, man, just like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's never too late to start, you see.
Right.
Thank you all for watching that with me. Thank you for sharing that. And gives us something to think about, I hope, anyway. Gives conversation starters anyway. Again, I can really relate to some of the things he went through. Not anywhere near the suffering he's gone through. Nothing like that. I'm just saying the ideals, from being so optimistic, naive, being what's the guy's name that charged at windmills, tilting at windmills, but because it was right. But because everything I believed, and I still believe, everything I stood for, everything I talked about, everything we worked for was right. And I still believe it. And I still have hope. Don't get me wrong. I'm not I'm not so unrealistic anymore. These are dark times. I think, we're potentially on a precipice of everything just catching fire. There are too many bundles of matches where just one little spark would ignite something that might not get put out for a very long time. And I'm concerned about that because of my daughters, my grandkids. And I'm going to keep talking about things that keep this show here at the bottom of the YouTube, and I'm okay with that. Not everybody's going to agree with everything or anything necessarily. And I'm not trying to build a movement or start anything. I'm just trying to get people to think for themselves more and to look in more than one direction. Because if you only look one direction, you're only going to see one thing. If you're only seeing one thing, that's going to be what controls you. And don't ever let anybody control your mind. You don't have to be mean, evil, wicked, weak. Just be sure of yourself. And the only way you do that is through thoughts, through facts, through thinking for yourself. It's not through groupthink. It's not through echo chambers. It's not through what your friend heard on the internet. It's hard. We got to do it all ourselves. And then we find like-minded people and we share ideas and we share hopes, hopefully. And we still keep trying to change things. Even though we keep saying, I actually quit trying to change things a real long time ago. We're still trying to change things. And, I forgot. I got to do this here before I close. And I don't know how good these will come through. I'll do this now because I don't have to see to read or anything. This is, that was for John Wall, one of our subscribers here on the channel. John, was it John Wall or Dave Wall? One of the Walls that subscribes. I think it's Dave Wall from Behind the Mirror, BTM. And hey to anybody happen to be watching him from BTM. Hey to everybody watching, no matter where you're at, no matter what. There's a little joke there at the end making fun of some of the antics that some of the current streamers might try to do to draw attention. And we have just a little tiny bit of fun here every once in a while, not very often, because we try to deal with things that don't get talked about enough. And again, thank you for watching this. John Sinclair, somebody I think shouldn't be forgotten from history. So we wanted to put this out there for all of you to watch. And I'm incredibly glad you did. We'll be back soon. Again, this has been Late Night America on the American Doofus channel, giving you some things to think about right now. Peace, love, and Soul Train.